Human behavior can be best understood by comparing it with animal behavior. Some people do not like comparing human beings with animals. Human instinctual behavior is complex, and therefore it is difficult to understand it unless we compare it with simpler forms of behavior of animals. Human beings have evolved from animals, and therefore by studying the simpler and more rigid forms of instinctual behavior of animals can give us crucial insights into human behavior. Ethology is the study of animal behavior, and the investigations of Konrad Lorenz, Tinbergen, and Desmond Morris and many others have contributed to the understanding of human instinctual behavior to a large extent. All living things have the self-preservation instinct, that is the instinct to survive. It can be seen right from the very beginning, even right from the unicellular animals or unicellular beings. Animals and plants generally get the reproductive urge when they reach full growth or maturity. Everything is changing all the time, and once the growth process is complete, there is a decline. That is, you are starting to degenerate and die. So when an organism reaches its full growth, there is a signal which produces a catastrophic reaction. The organism at some level realizes that it is now starting to die, and then the very survival instinct triggers the reproductive mechanism. That is, if I cannot survive as an organism now, I would like to create duplicates of myself, and that is the reproductive instinct. How has the reproductive instinct evolved? Existence as a particular being is highly pleasurable. All the thrill and excitement comes through this feeling that you are a separate being. So you struggle for existence, you compete. So all this involves considerable excitement and thrill. So existence is pleasurable, existence as a particular separate being. Now this is going to end. So I would like to continue this particular existence by creating duplicates of myself. And when an animal has offsprings, the offsprings support its own existence. That is, a grown-up animal has young ones, and the young ones join the hunt or join the struggle for existence. If there is an external threat, the young ones also join the fight. So across several generations this has been reinforced. That is, you must make the group bigger so that you can survive. So across several generations this reinforcement has been carried on. That is, whatever act leads to self-preservation is reinforced, positively reinforced. So if an animal does not have offsprings, hunt will soon become difficult because of not having adequate members for the hunt, and therefore the animal dies. On the other hand, if an animal has several offsprings, the group becomes bigger and hunt becomes more effective. So having more offsprings is reinforced, and therefore the act of reproduction itself becomes pleasurable because of positive reinforcement across several generations. So that is how the sex act becomes very pleasurable. You may say that there is a physiological mechanism which gives pleasure or satisfaction, but the physiology itself is the result of a psychological mechanism, because the body and mind are two parts of the same system. So whatever is psychologically pleasurable is immediately reinforced, and the evolutionary mechanism works to create the pleasure giving anatomical as well as physiological changes. Now if you observe animal behavior, you will notice many things. In the first place, the sexual urge is a catastrophic reaction. When there is definite danger, the sexual urge is more, because reproduction becomes more important when there is danger to the organism. So it is afraid that it may have to die, and therefore creating duplicates is very important. If you are a grower of plants, you know that if you give the plant enough water and plenty of manure and all that, it will not flower. It will just grow vigorously and continue growing. And people who grow plants know that if you want the plant to fruit immediately, what you have to do is stop watering and manuring, and also start harming the plant. Then it will immediately start flowering. So in our place, if a jackfruit tree doesn't flower, what they do is they bring an elephant and make the elephant pull down a big branch, and immediately the jackfruit tree will flower. Because once there is a catastrophe, the sexual urges, reproductive urges triggered. It is noted that soldiers, when they go to the war front, become extremely sexually aggressive. A man in his own quiet village may even be impotent. He may have very little interest in sex, but he joins the army and goes to the war front. And traditionally, after the war, or even during the war, soldiers are permitted to plunder and rape, and the man who is important in his native village suddenly becomes a very virulent rapist, and he starts raping women in the enemy country. This is because when a man goes to fight, he knows that he may die, and this triggers the catastrophic reaction, and the man or the animal, as the case may be, experiences extreme sexual arousal. Animal sexual behavior follows a very definite sequence. In the case of most animals, there is what is known as a reproductive season. It is triggered by a certain climatic condition, and at the first stage there is what is known as territorial behavior. That is, male animals try to acquire a certain amount of space, or in the case of birds it may be a nest building behavior. In the case of certain animals which live in colonies, there is what is known as arena behavior. That is, male animals come together and fight and establish territories. An animal who is successful in establishing its own territory attracts females. You can see that the same pattern is reflected in human sexual behavior also. In primitive societies, a young man has to show that he is good in hunting. In modern societies, a young man has to show that he has a good job, he has a good income, or he has a house, or he has a good job. So females are attracted by a young man who is successful in competition and who owns a territory. The territory may be physical or even psychological. So therefore there is the competitive phase where young males compete for territory or success in earning a livelihood. So this is the first phase. In the case of certain animals, the territorial phase may be very short-lived. In the case of some animals, it may be relatively long. In the case of human beings, this competitive phase usually starts in adolescence, but may continue into late adolescence as well as early adulthood.